Librarianship is not a monolith. There are many different perspectives in this field, and that is what I hope to explore with Black in the Stacks, the many different perspectives of Black librarianship. In this episode, I speak with Jason K. Alston. He has worked in the library field since 2006 and is currently an instructor in library science. He is best known in LIS for his research on diversity residencies and his former role as the editor of BCALA's publication, BCALA News. In his spare time, he enjoys training in the martial arts and spending time with his family. In this episode, we talk about his views on Black male librarianship, diversity and lack thereof within library organizations, and where he sees his life after libraries.
So first of all, thank you for agreeing to even be interviewed and everything. The first question I always like to ask people when doing stuff like this is, what is your library story? Like, how did you get involved with libraries?
Yes, absolutely. So I think everybody has a library story that's kind of like dramatic. And so my library story, I'll try to keep this to 5 minutes-ish, but I do like to tell my story because it's kind of like, I don't know, it's therapy for me, I guess. So with my library story, I graduated from undergrad school at UNC Wilmington. That was in 2005. And I had a college sweetheart at the time. So after we graduated, she and I both graduated in May 2005. I was from Warren County, North Carolina. I went back home. She was from the Metro DC area, and she also went back home. And so we decided, okay, it's not going to work. We're going to be, too far away from each other. So let's just call it quits now. And so we tried to call it quits at that time, but that did not work out. We were too in love and all that stuff. And so we stayed in contact. And what ended up happening was, so I was working as a newspaper reporter for the Henderson Daily Dispatch near my hometown. And she had a really good job with the Department of Defense. She maps the ocean floor for the Department of Defense. That's all I know. So I couldn't ask her, of course, to leave that role, right? So if we were going to be together, that meant that I had to go up to DC. She was not going to come down to North Carolina. And I was like, well, somebody, actually my sophomore year of college, the director of UNC Wilmington's library, had told me that there were probably going to be some opportunities in libraries coming up, and especially me being a person of color, I should pursue those opportunities. He told me that when I was a sophomore in college, so about 3 years earlier, but I still remembered that. So I told her, I was like, well, I know I can't get a media job, a reporting job in Metro DC, because those are hard to come by. But what I can do is go to library school. I can get the library degree and come up there and marry you and get a job with DC Public once I get the degree. And so that was the plan we had. But when I got into, North Carolina Central, and I was actually awarded a diversity scholarship. They reviewed my application materials a second time after I had complained about some things that were going on with the school very early on. And then they were like, you know what, you should be part of our scholarship initiative, which I hadn't heard of this scholarship initiative. So they told me I should be part of it. And I'm like, okay. And so the scholarship initiative did require me to be there on campus a lot more often. And I was doing a lot more work because I was taking 12 hours per semester. And I did live about an hour and a half away from campus. So it was an hour and a half commute, 12 hours graduate credits, that's full time, all of that stuff. So I'm busy. And even though I went to school for my fiance, she decided that I was spending too much time in school. So she left me. That was like I'm thinking to myself, okay, you're the reason I did this. I am making a life change for you. Do you understand what's going on? But she didn't. I actually was able to talk her into, like, she left me the first time and I was able to talk her into coming back, but she had her friends in her ear, and her friends were saying things, like, oh, well, he's a graduate student at an HBCU with all those girls and blah, blah, blah. I wasn't doing anything. I had nothing going on but my studies. But she just kept turning around, and every time I would talk to her, well, Maggie said this, and Steffi asked that, and blah, blah, blah. And also, her friends weren't black. She was black, but her friends, Maggie and Steffi, they were not black. So they didn't really know what was going on and what black men have to contend with. So they convinced her to leave me again, and the second time I didn't run after her. So that was just the end of the relationship. But because I had gotten a scholarship, and because print media, if you don't know, print media doesn't pay that well. So because I had gotten a scholarship and print media doesn't pay very well, I decided then instead of sticking to journalism, I still remained a journalist throughout my time at North Carolina Central. But once I got the degree, my pay doubled because I got my first library job, and my first library job was only $40,000. But that's how bad small town print media costs. Pays. So that $40,000 was almost twice what I was making at the newspapers. So I just stayed from there. That's my story.
Cool. So, in all, including, I would guess, your time in library school too, how long have you been active in the library field or in your library career?
Yes, so I'm almost 20 years in. I actually started library school in the fall of 2006.
Okay,
So, and I was deeply involved with the field as soon as I entered school. So yes, I have. It's been 18 and a half years now, and I'll be celebrating 20 years in August of 2026.
that's cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I started library school in 2009, so I was like just right behind you. Yeah. So, as we know, first of all, there aren't a lot of Black librarians in the field, period. Um, and the percentage of that is, by my last estimate, it's still not in the double digits. We're like 7 point something or almost 8 or something like that. But when you break that down, there's even less of a percentage of Black male librarians. How do you feel about being one of very few Black librarians in this field? Black male librarians, I should say.
Yes, and that answer, it kind of evolves over time. I'm probably going to give you longer answers than you wanted, but hey, it's a podcast. Here we go. So yeah, I finished my MLS in 2008, and I was only 25 at the time. So at that time, I really was probably one of the 10 youngest Black male librarians as well, like in the country, because most of them were not 25 at the time. We do have some younger guys in their mid 20s now, but that was not the case roughly 20 years ago when I started. So I actually thought it was cool back then. Early on in my career, it was cool. It was cool being the young Black male librarian. Actually, my first job was at UNC Greensboro, and the Black newspaper in Greensboro, they came and spoke to me and everything, and that was cool being like a feature story with them. And I had the long cornrows and everything. I was young, I was handsome, looking good. Yeah, it was cool for a while, especially because yeah, I'll admit, I got attention that way. Like I would go to conferences, and again, I'm not trying to be conceited, but I was a good looking dude when I was young. I was. So, I would go to the conferences, and it'd be pretty much just, mostly ladies there, and then I'm there and everything. And, it was an opportunity I'll just say there were a lot of women librarians who did want to, like, they were interested in talking to the guys, not necessarily on a romantic level, but they just, oh, the guys are here. It's kind of like, I'm in a Black
Yeah.
fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma, and you will see our sister sorority, Zeta Phi Beta. The Zetas love white Sigmas. I mean, they just do. It's a thing. It's unique. So it was kind of a reversal of that dynamic going on.
Right. Right.
And so, yeah, in my younger years, it was awesome. Now, I will say that it's kind of worn old with me at this point, because of some of the things that are happening. One thing that I'm going to say is that, first of all, I don't feel that diversity research in this field is serious. I think that it's only to stop people's CVs and that sort of thing, to get people professional development dollars and grant money and that sort of thing. But we're still talking about the same shit that we were talking about when I joined. And people don't fix problems in this field, at least when it comes to racial diversity. They don't fix those problems. They just research around the problems. And I mean, at this point, yeah, I'm 41 years old now. So this is old to me. It's like, okay, I've wasted 20 years of my life and 20 years of my career with people just researching, but not creating any change. And it actually kind of reminds me of a scene from The Wire. If you've seen The Wire, great series, and there is a scene where they're at a conference. Like one of the cops he was doing something with like an education professor, and the education professor actually presents about what they did at this conference. And you can see the cop is disappointed because he sees all these scholars and they're furiously writing all these notes about what this guy is presenting. But you can tell that the cop is thinking, okay, but the hood is still the same. The hood is still the same, and y'all are patting yourselves on the back. And that's what this career has been to me. Has been of late, it's just been me realizing that people aren't serious about what they do. They're not serious about the initiatives they're trying to start. And it's I mean, it just leads to people like I don't know, it leads to just people being in things for the wrong reasons. And so when I look at what I want is to have fellowship with other Black male librarians. I like having fellowship with other Black men. That's why I'm in a fraternity. That's why I'm in Phi Beta Sigma, because I like having fellowship with other Black men. And But the Black men in this field, it's getting to the point where I'm seeing that this is not a population of people I want to be associated with that much. I'm not saying every Black man in the field, but certainly there is a vibe. There are a lot of Black men in the library field who are either ashamed, or they don't celebrate their Blackness, and they don't uplift Black people. I see a lot of Black male librarians who, quite frankly, seem like they want to be white feminists and like white liberals and that sort of thing, and that's how they behave. And that's not what I want to be around. And then I'm also just seeing these days, and don't listen, I am not knocking them, because I am going to start calling out some names, but I'm not knocking these people, because these are people that I love. Quite frankly, I love. But when it comes to high profile guys like Michael Threets, when it comes to my buddy Billy Allen, I love Billy, and Richard Ashby up in New York, I love these men. So this is not a critique. They are my Black librarian brothers in this field. But they are taking things to this library joy thing. I mean, Michael is really big into that, and it's cool. It's cool. That's where they fit in. So I'm not knocking that at all. It's kind of like there's a rapper, Saigon, who has a lyric where he's talking about how he's a conscious rapper and he's different from Young Jock. But he's not dissing Young Jock, because he's saying, that dude is caking, whereas, I haven't made a dime rapping for the cause. That's what Saigon said. Right. And I feel something similar to that. Like I am not the library joy Black male. I am the angry Black male librarian. Yeah, I don't want us to get centered on all this library joy. I don't want librarians to start associating Black men with like happy Negroism and all the smiling and the minstrel stuff.
Right. The magical Negro stereotype.
Exactly. Yes, I am not interested in that. Yes, we do need to talk about our library joy, and I do have some library joy because it does allow me to have a house and to have a family and everything like that. But it's some stuff in this field that makes me mad. And so I don't want to get hung up on, okay, now Black male librarians, in order to be palatable to a field that's scared of us, we have to don this over happy persona. Not all of us can be Michael. Again, I love Michael, but not all of us can be him, and not all of us should be him. And I feel that I am here specifically to not be like that, but to tell people, okay, this is what you're doing wrong. This is how we can fix things. This is what we need if we want to diversify this field. And I also just don't trust a lot of the other Black men in this field I've seen, to where they're self-serving, or to where they want to be white, or to where they a vibe that I get with a lot of the Black people in this field, actually a lot of the non-whites, whether they're Black or not, is that they feel that they seem like they want to be white, but they seem like they want to be white liberals, and they think it's okay. Like we'll always call it out when you're talking about people like Candace Owens or Larry Elder, Clarence Thomas. These are the people who want to be white as well, but they want to be white on the right side, right? Like conservatives.
Right.
And so we'll call them sellouts and Uncle Toms and that sort of thing all day. But I look at these Black librarians who want to be like white liberals the exact same way. And there are, I'm going to give you this quick example and then we'll move on because I don't want to dwell on this too much. But as a quick example, see, I don't feel that Black politics really fall neatly into this paradigm of mainstream white politics. You've got that spectrum of conservatism, liberalism, and then moderates, and you've got this spectrum, right? And I think a lot of Black librarians actually try to be, again, like white liberals and think that if they are taking up white liberal causes, then they are helping the Black community. And I'm going to give an example of where I don't feel that that's the case, and where our politics as Black people kind of fall outside of that spectrum. And what I'm going to talk about, and this will be controversial, but what I'm going to talk about is migrants and where they end up being located. So it's a conservative position in white politics to be like, not in my backyard. Don't bring those migrants into my backyard. I don't want them here. For white people to say something like that is conservative, but I think it's actually a progressive Black political stance to say, hey, okay, the migrants are here and that's fine, but we know that Black Americans are traditionally disenfranchised and have been since slavery, since 1619, all of that stuff. And we know that Black communities in America are still struggling. So no, the migrants should not be put in Chicago in Black neighborhoods and overlaid over Black people, because now you are putting a barrier to Black progress there. The migrants should be in places where they are not competing with Black people. And I say that that is not a conservative stance. That is actually a progressive stance. And that is not me being anti-migrant, because I will say, bring the migrants to flyover country, which is where I live. I live out in Missouri. Bring the migrants to places like Missouri and Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, places where there are not a lot of Black residents to begin with. And then the work that they do does not compete with Black people. So if I say something like that in mainstream Black America, it's fine. And they understand that's actually a progressive stance that we're doing for opportunities for Black people to have opportunities by not having to compete with migrants. But when you talk to Black librarians who are basing their behavior, their political behavior and their political depth on the white conservative to liberal spectrum, then they are going to see that as a conservative thing and even as a hate thing, because they're thinking to themselves, well, no, the migrants should be able to live wherever they want and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking, no, the migrants should not be competing with resident Black citizens. It just should not happen, because we need, in order for us to be on the same level and performing at the same level as everybody else, we do need concessions made to us, and that's going to be one of those concessions. So yes, bringing it all back, I say that to say that one thing that bothers me about the Black people, and specifically the Black men in our field specifically, is that they think that white liberal culture is better than Black culture, from what I see. And so that's what they try to emulate. And I used to be that way too, I'll admit. So there was a time where, for instance, I was an atheist and I was talking bad about the Black church, this, that, and the other. And I'm over that now. And I was taking up all the liberal causes, like anything that these liberal white librarians were taking up, I was taking it all up. And then I realized that some of that stuff is actually contrary to Black progress. But they don't think it is, because they're liberals, and liberals tend to think that they know everything that's good for everybody, but they don't know. Black liberals might know what's good for Black people, but white liberals certainly do not. Okay, there you go.
Thank you. So keeping in the theme of, I guess, well, I mean, it's the buzz phrase that's out there right now, the DEI, right? You tweeted something a while ago, and I'm going to quote it. So you said something like, there is no inherent fit for solidarity between an organization that advocates for Black library users and employees and an organization that advocates for library users who primarily speak Spanish, and that forced learning doesn't make logical sense. Expound. Like,
Okay.
where did that
And,
come from?
and it's actually that's going to be forced teaming versus forced learning.
Okay.
But yes, gotcha. Yes. So here's the thing, and I always tell people this so that I don't sound like I'm coming cold when I'm talking about Latin Americans and the Spanish speaking and that sort of thing. So yes, I'm Black. I'm a Black American. I'm not Hispanic at all, but I have two situations from my developmental years that I think do kind of set me apart at least a little bit and give me some leeway to speak on these things. First of all, my father is married to a Dominican, so and she grew up in the Dominican Republic. Like, she moved here to be with my father and did not speak English when she got here. So I'm talking about a real Dominican, like, well, don't get me wrong, the Dominicans in New York are real Dominicans, but I'm talking about somebody who was like first like migrated here, right? And she's a permanent resident. And then also, she has a son. He also grew up in the Dominican Republic with her. So I say that to say that I have a blended family. And then also, I am going to say that the high school that I attended back when I attended it many years ago, that was the only high school in a large school district that had an ESL, or English as a second language program. So all the people from that school district, and there are 10 high schools in that district, but all of them who English was their second language, they came to our school. So my high school was about a third people who were not native to the United States, people who had moved here from other countries. So, and we all had to make it work, just like I had to make it work with living with Hispanic people in my family. We also had to make it work. I had to make it work those 4 years of high school. We had a lot of things that we went through because we were a Black high school that also just had this population kind of overlaid on us. So I've got perspective on these things, and I have ever since I was in middle school, as far as where's the inherent fit between, well, where's the inherent fit really with all of this BIPOC solidarity that we talk about? First of all, there is no I'm going to make this a little broader for a little while here. So first of all, there just is no inherent fit. It's just when you ask people, and this is one thing that annoys me about our field, one of many things that annoys me about the library field, is that we are wedded to approaches that have not worked anywhere and have not worked for us. And we've been doing the BIPOC solidarity stuff at least since the early 1990s, at least in this field. You can, and as you can see, it hasn't really improved anything. Yes, we have JCLC, so people can go to this Joint Librarians of Color conference, and they can get together and like, well, let me come back to that. First of all, let me say that in the when it comes to even outside of librarianship, in all of American history, there really has not been much in the way of BIPOC coalitions working. And I've been very vocal about saying that on Twitter as well. And librarians don't tend to like that. Like a lot of librarians of color have actually come to me and tried to counter me and say, well, no, there have been plenty of BIPOC coalitions that have worked and da 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 da. And I always tell people, okay, name 3. And nobody ever does that. They always say, yeah, there are plenty of them that have worked. And American history now spans over 200 years, close to 250 now. But in that amount of time, there have always been more than just Black and white people in this country. There have been indigenous people here from the beginning. And then there have been, like Asian people coming into the country since the early 1800s, at least, to do railroad work and those sorts of things. A lot of other things I don't want to stereotype as if that was the only thing they were doing. But having said that, so we've had BIPOC in this country more than just Black people in this country from the very beginning. And you cannot find these examples of BIPOC coalitions actually working to facilitate change, unless you're talking about on college campuses, which I do not count that. So like, yeah, you might have the Black Student Union working with the Hispanic student group to do a little something on campus, but that's not sustainable change. I'm sorry, but we're just really not talking about the real world there anyway. We are talking about a college campus, and we're talking about college students. We're talking about people within a very limited age range. Outside of that, these BIPOC solidarity things do not work, but I will tell you, there have always been Asian immigrants and Asian migrant populations who have sued so that their kids would not have to go to school with Black kids. There were indigenous tribes that owned African slaves and so forth and so on. So I'm gonna just say blatantly that there has not been any loyalty or any solidarity with Black people at all by these other groups. Don't get me wrong, individuals, yes, but as far as these other groups really saying, hey, let's as a group work with Black groups to make things happen, that is not something that happens. But you will find a lot of times these other groups, basically, to put it in a nutshell, nobody comes to a white supremacist country to fight white supremacy. That is not why they migrate here. You come to a country like the United States to leverage a position within a white supremacist system, not to actually fight white supremacy. And so I say that to say that, yes, we as Black people, we have had to fight the white supremacy within this country since before the country even was founded, since the 1600s, right? But these other groups that are coming in, for us to think, oh, well, they're not white either, so they're going to be part of our cause, they're natural allies. No, when people come into this country, they are not thinking about Black Americans. They are thinking about their opportunities and what they can get when they come into this country. So when Black Americans come to first and second generation families talking about, yeah, let's be allies, these are still people who, if they weren't born in other countries, their parents or their grandparents were born in other countries. And so they're escaping. First of all, a lot of these people, they come into our country having poor views of Black Americans and of Africans. So they're coming into this country already. Don't ask me to cite the study, but I've read a study, well, not read a study, but read the abstract of a study that said that Asian and Hispanic first and second generation families, they tend to have only slightly less anti-Black bias than white people. Now, when they're born here, like a lot of times you'll see, like that abstract did also say that those who were born here, like Hispanic and Asians who were born here, they tend to have less anti-Black bias than the ones who were born in other countries and migrated here. But still, that's a lot of anti-Black bias that you are saying to yourself, hey, those are our natural allies. No, they're not. They are here because they think that white people can give them opportunities and pay them. They are not here because Black people need help and they want to help us. So it's forced teaming to try to team up with these people. And then when you talk specifically about Reforma, which is what I was getting at with that quote that you just gave, an org that advocates for library users who primarily speak Spanish, Reforma's got a lot of issues, and I'm not afraid to say that. Reforma, for one thing, let's just keep it real. White Hispanics are still white. I don't know how we got into our heads that white Hispanics were somehow people of color. If you're going to say that a white Argentine is not white because he was born in Argentina instead of Spain, and Spanish is a European language to begin with. So what are we doing here? You know, if you're going to treat that as saying they're people of color, you might as well say that French Canadians are people of color. The French Canadians are as white as they want to be, but they don't speak English either. They speak French. So, hey, if they're not, I guess if you're white, but you don't speak English as a primary language, then that makes you a person of color. No, not in my book. And I will tell you, like when I talk to my stepmother and when I talk to my younger brother, my Dominican younger brother, and that sort of thing, they are still not seeing, like when they watch a lot of Univision, and when they're watching that, they are not looking at the white actors as people of color and the white actresses as people of color. They actually see them as Spaniards. They see them as Europeans. And so that's what we should really see them as well. Now, Reforma will have white Hispanic presidents. So we have a group in JCLC that is led by white people, but is getting to vote on matters for people of color. And that is something that is about as force teaming as you can get. So, and you could see that with, as a good example, with how Reforma decided they were not going to endorse Kelvin Watson. They talk about BIPOC solidarity, but they were not going to endorse a Black man running against a white woman. They sent out a press release saying, we're not endorsing either of them. And this is just like only 2 years after they had gotten into the ears of BCALA leaders talking about, well, you got to show BIPOC solidarity. You gotta endorse Patty Wong. She's a non-white, and we've got to have solidarity. That's what they were saying when a person was not Black, but when a person was Black, now it's they both have great leadership qualities, and we're not endorsing either. So what you should be able to take from that is, but then, and let me bring it back. So then a couple years after that, Ray Pun is on the ballot, and Ray is a son of immigrants, and you see that Reforma is more than happy at this point to endorse Ray. Again, Ray isn't white. Ray isn't Black. He's not white either. He's of Asian descent. And when you look at their endorsement statement, they were saying all of this stuff about how his immigrant story and 2 languages being spoken at home and that sort of thing, that resonates with Reforma. That resonates with Reforma. So we have to endorse them. And so what doesn't resonate with Reforma? The Black American struggle. It clearly did not resonate with y'all because y'all wouldn't resonate. Y'all wouldn't endorse my dude. So I'm just saying, don't come at me with the BIPOC solidarity when it benefits you, if you're not going to come with it when it benefits us.
That was a lot. That was a lot. No, you're fine. I think we're at a space in librarianship, or at least the thing for me was that there's a thing that says that libraries are for everyone. And I think people have a warped perception of thinking that libraries are inherently neutral, that the community that resides within libraries are middle of the road people. It's just straightforward. There is no left, there is no far right or anything like that. It's just middle of the road. And that is absolutely not the case. And I posted a TikTok a while back where it was considered to say that libraries aren't neutral as like this controversial thing, but it's the truth, because the people who are in charge of your libraries have their own internal biases, whether they want to admit it or not. They have their own biases, and that influences how they purchase books for the collection, that influences the programs that they approve, that influences the grants that they go after, and all of that stuff. So yeah, a lot of what you're saying, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that Black people for a long time have been tasked with supporting everyone, because we usually do. And it's, like you said, Black people are waking up, and, more so you're seeing it now in libraries, because libraries are, for now, the last sort of wide open space where you can go and research, where you can go and access information for free, where you can go walk in without a library card, pick a book up off the shelf, have a seat, and learn as much as you possibly can, and nobody's going to bother you about that. And so I think there's room, and I know a lot of people are going to come and be like, "Oh no, he's wrong. This is that." It's an opinion. Everybody has one, and it's a different perspective that, from just listening, and my perspective, has a lot of merit to it, right? It
Yes.
has a lot of room. There is a lot of truth in that, and it's uncomfortable. But the whole thing that I've started, apart from this podcast, there's another one, Life After Libraries. Like, it got to be so much for me. And my situation is unique because the catalyst for me was not necessarily coming from white people in the field. It was coming from people who look like me, specifically a Black woman. And that hurt me to have someone who looked like me, who was supposed to champion and support me, um, drive me to the point of not wanting to be in the field anymore, or at least taking a break from it, I should say. I saw the other day that IMLS congratulated the current president on his win, if you can call it that. But in the same breath, turned around and was like, sent an email just yesterday, like, "Hey, so we're lacking funding, and we need your support to continue this work." No,
Right.
no, I no. You put a whole tweet congratulating this person and are now begging other people to help you with a situation where you really should have taken a stand. And I
Indeed.
understand. I understand it. I understand people. They don't want to lose their livelihoods. They don't want to lose um, the comfort of the job they've probably had for years. Because let's face it, library folk, they get into a good position. The work is the same. They're making, a nice chunk of change, some of them, and they want to stay in that for as long as they can, which prevents growth. It prevents, um, you know, change, for lack of a better way to say it.
Yes.
So going back into that theme of, organizations that are meant to kind of advocate for Black librarianship and everything, you've been involved with, or you work closely with BCALA. Um, One, can you talk about, a bit about your contributions to that organization? And two, you've also been very vocal about the state of BCALA, including them receiving contributions to the handbook from non-Black people. Um, so I think some would ask, one, why are you so critical of an organization that is, in essence, designed to help you, a Black male librarian? And two, and two, do you even have the right to be that critical of something like that, which has had long standing in the library field and the library community of championing and supporting Black librarians and Black library staff?
Gotcha. Yes, yes. So, and I'll start with some of my contributions first. I will say that BCALA is where I got my start. Um, when I started my first professional librarian job at 25, I was also kind of being groomed by BCALA people. I had a mentor within BCALA, Kelvin Watson. Actually, Jerome Alford was also a mentor to me. And so when I joined BCALA, I'm thinking that these again are serious minded people. I'm always looking for Black people. I grew up in a Black church. I'll admit I didn't go to a Black undergrad school because I went to a Black high school and thought I needed to do something else. But then I came back to HBCU um, for my graduate studies and joined a Black fraternity, all those things. So I'm always trying to be in fellowship and support with Black people. When it comes to BCALA, I got involved very early and actually even became a life member very early. I became a life member at 25 years old. Jerome Alford, my mentor, one of my mentors, actually paid for my life membership. He did so with the caveat that I pay it forward and pay for somebody else's life membership one day, which I have. And once I hit the ground running, I started right away with um, helping with conference planning. That was the big thing that I was doing at first. I was doing a lot of logistics work at the conferences. So there was that. I did little odd jobs for BCALA here and there, took up whatever types of work I would be asked to do. And where I really hit my groove was first, well, I should say that first, I was 27. So just 2 years after I got my first librarian job at 27, I was voted onto the executive board for BCALA, and I spent, I believe, two terms, so 4 years that first time that I served on the executive board. So I was taking a leadership role, and I was the youngest. I was trying to be a young leader, trying to speak for young Black people entering the profession. that sort of thing. I got really energized on that role because at the same time that I was doing that, I was also working with the A Scholars program, the A Scholars being mostly Black scholarship recipients for library school back at that time at UNC Greensboro. So I was doing all of that type of work. And then where I really hit my groove was when I took over the BCALA newsletter, which is now called the BCALA News. And I changed the name with the blessing of the executive board. We voted on that. And I turned it from just like a PDF newsletter into actually a magazine. It was coming out too often, for one thing. So before I took over the BCALA newsletter, it was coming out 6 times a year, every other month. By this time, we already have a listserv, we've got emails, we've got this, that, and the other. But they're still doing the old school approach of putting that thing out every other month. And that was not helpful. And I was not able to actually put the time into it that I wanted to because the turnaround was so quickly. So I had it made into a quarterly publication. And then I made it into a magazine format. And we actually hired we contracted with a professional designer and that sort of thing to put together something that actually looked like a magazine. And so I was very happy to have that. And that was my big contribution. And I did that for many, many years. I actually probably would still be doing it today. But then there was a president who wanted to go in a different direction. So I stepped down and they went in that different direction. To be honest with you, I don't feel that the newsletter has been the same since I left. I know that's an arrogant thing to say, but I think it's true. And I think part of the reason for that, though, is because honestly, I was making the librarianship my life, and I was making that publication a big part of my life. And it does, in order to run it the way I ran it, it does have to be a big part of your life. Now, the way that it's run now, and I don't even know who's in charge right now, but the way that it's being handled now, I know that the editor probably has more going on in their life than I did at the time. They might actually have a social life, whereas I didn't. So if they have a social life, then they don't want to spend all their time doing the publication. But going back to the second part of your question, why I've become critical in the past few years is because I am, again, seeing things that I'm seeing that BCALA, I don't feel is standing on business. For one thing, we've got to, again, I'm going back to that forced teaming. We have got to stop being so buddy-buddy with the NALCOs. It doesn't help us. It doesn't help us at all. And so one thing that's happening with BCALA is, first of all, when it comes to JCLC, the Joint Conference of, the Joint Caucus now of Librarians of Color, so they are, again, we're looking at this 5-member organization, and there's some weird stuff going on. So first of all, Reforma has a vote. There are 5 organizations that have a vote: CALA, APALA, ALA, Reforma, and BCALA. Reforma will have will have white presidents, and they'll have white people all over their executive board. Why do they get a vote in the Joint Council of Librarians of Color? They shouldn't. They're not librarians of color. They're librarians who speak Spanish. And there are people in Spain who speak Spanish. Actually, Argentina and Uruguay are even whiter than Spain is, but they speak Spanish there. So that's not an organization for people of color. They should not have a vote. The other thing that I think is kind of strange with what's going on with the Joint Council is that I think we've got 2 Asian organizations. We've got CALA, the Chinese American Library Association. They get a vote. And then we've got APALA, the Asian and Pacific American Library Association, and they get a vote. So it's like 2 votes for the Asian population. Now, you can make the argument that AAPI is so big as a diaspora and so varying that they should get 2 votes because, hey, when you talk about APALA and AAPI, you're talking about what I would consider at least 3 different races of people. You've got Pacific Islanders. They're a different race from East Asians, like your Japanese and your Koreans and your Vietnamese. But I see them as a different race from your South Asians, your Indians, your Pakistanis, your people from Bangladesh and those sorts of places. So you can make that argument that, I guess you can make the argument that because it's such a big sprawling diaspora that they have so many people that are represented, and so they should get 2 votes. But I don't think that the 2 votes are going to the right places, because truth be told, when you look at Apala, most of their membership is East Asian. They do have a significant amount of Pacific Islander membership as well, so I don't want to discount that, but most of their membership is East Asian. And then I've even had a librarian of Indian descent tell me that there's hardly any representation of South Asians at all. Like, they don't get involved with Apala like that. And I see Chinese people also as East Asian, to be honest with you. So to me, it looks like the East Asian population is getting 2 votes in a 5-vote council for people of color. And then you've got a organization that could be presided over by white people at any given time also getting a vote. And then Black people get 1 vote. And then Indigenous people get 1 vote. We've lost our way. That the Black Caucus does not push any real agenda within JCLC. Actually, maybe I'm saying too much, but I'm gonna just come out and say it. First of all, JCLC, that was a Black librarian's idea. That was Gladys Smiley Bell's idea. JCLC was her idea. And yet, Apala and Reforma, I'm just going to call it out, those 2 organizations specifically, their membership on the council, the people that are representing them on the council, it pretty much boxed the Black person out of decision making. They've acted like it was their idea. It was the idea that came from Black people. They've acted like it was their idea, and they even had the nerve to try to tell BCALA who we should have as our representative. But that's the problem. Yes, they went there. They also, by the way, they also said that BCALA needed to vote me out of the of the presidency for BCALA, which they did. But
Wow.
they didn't do it. I will say that BCALA's exec board, when they voted me out, they didn't do it because they were told to. They did because they thought I was a liability. And maybe I am, but again, I have stuff that needs to be said, and I'm gonna say it. But yeah, I say that to say that, yes, so BCALA is still putting a lot of effort into a solidarity model, a BIPOC solidarity model that doesn't work. It doesn't work in part because one of the organizations is presided over by white people. So it's not a council of people of color. And then also there's double representation as far as I'm concerned, there's double representation of East Asians. And so that also makes things not work, but we're still pursuing this. And as you can see, JCLC has had no positive effect whatsoever on the state of Black librarianship. What they have offered me, and I've talked to some people who aren't Black about this, and what they've spoken to me about, I'll never forget this. One non-Black librarian said, well, hey, we need JCLC because that gives us an opportunity to come together and cry every 4 years. Well, we can get on a Zoom call and cry. We don't have to cry at a damn conference. We don't have to spend thousands of dollars. We don't have to leave our families. We don't have to have all this makeup work when we get back. We can get on a conference call and fucking cry to each other. And I have done that with people. Like, I've had those situations where I just listen to the tears of my students, or listen to the tears of my colleagues, or listen to their concerns and that sort of thing. We can do that without having a conference. But the other part of that disturbed me was that, why are we doing this work if we're accepting the fact that it's going to be ineffective and we're just going to have to come together and cry every 4 years? I want to solve problems. I'm a small town boy. We solve problems. We don't research around problems. We don't come together to cry about the problems. We solve them. And that's what the library field does not do. It does not solve problems. It keeps the problems going, because that's where the professional development stuff is. That's where the publishing opportunities are. That's where the travel dollars are. And so I'm sick of that. But BCALA puts too much effort into this solidarity model that does not work. And then another issue that I'm having with BCALA is, again, the reason you lose your way and you become ineffective is because people know that they can infiltrate you, and people know that they can get your assistance without reciprocity. And that's what we've got going on with BCALA right now. First of all, when it comes to infiltration, I'm not talking about the officers, because yes, BCALA does have a black male vice president right now, and they've got a black male treasurer right now.
Mhm.
But when you look at their executive board, who do they have? There is not one black male on their executive board. But notice I said that there's not one black male on their executive board. They do have a male on their executive board, and he's not black. So why is he fucking on there, right? So you're being infiltrated. You're letting, that is not cute. It's not a sign of solidarity when somebody who is not black comes and gets on your executive board if you're a black organization. That is not flattery, it's not admiration, it is infiltration. And what this guy is probably doing is not helping black people, but absorbing information from this black organization. If there are things that need to be said about the other Nalcos, he can go run his mouth to them, but he is not accountable to black people and he's not black. Why is he on the exec board? You are losing your way if you have this person who is not black on your decision-making council. I'll go a step further. BCALA didn't even have black people in control of its social media voices. There was, I don't know if you remember this, but there are a lot of people who will remember that a few years ago, BCALA had a tweet, and it was a pro Christopher Columbus tweet, and it
Yes.
got everybody pissed off. Yeah, so you do remember that.
I remember.
Yes, I'm going to tell you. And again, I'm not making any, I'm not shy about saying this. I don't care if it gets me in trouble later. I'm just going to tell it. The reason that happened was because BCALA did not have black people controlling the voice of the Black Caucus, and that makes no sense. So that was actually an Asian employee of BCALA who tweeted that out, but it made black people look bad. But I have a question. Why are you letting Asian people speak for you? You are a black organization, so maybe don't do that. And then another example, this will be the last example just for the sake of time, but something that speaks to another thing that speaks to BCALA losing its way is, again, how these endorsements were handled. So these ALA endorsements. So the other Nalcos came to BCALA and they were like, hey, y'all haven't endorsed Patty Wong. That looks bad, blah, blah, blah. We're supposed to be in it together, yada, yada, yada. BCALA gave Patty Wong the endorsement, as we should have at the time. And if you were to search the listserv archives, you would see that I was one of the loudest voices saying, yes, we need to do right by the other Nalcos. We're in this together. Let's endorse Patty Wong. And I got that petition out there so that people would sign it. But when they came back, the other Nalcos, well, specifically Reforma and Apollo, when they came back 2 years or 3 years, whatever it was later, saying, yeah, when we needed an ally, we were going to tell you, yes, you needed to endorse an Asian person and Patty Wong, but we're not doing that for the black people. Yes, Kelvin Watson is running against Emily Drabinski, who is as white as can be, from Idaho and everything. They're running against each other, but we don't have a dog in this fight. Yes, y'all had to have a dog in our fight, but we're not going to have a dog in yours. So Reforma just released a press release saying they weren't going to endorse, and then Apollo just tried to sneak out. They tried to be very quiet. They usually endorse somebody, but that year they decided to be very quiet and hope that nobody would notice. I was watching. And Ray Pun was the president of Apollo at that time when they didn't endorse. So now we've got a situation here where Ray, and I like Ray, this is and I'm going to come back to this point too, because I do like Ray. But when Ray would not endorse Kelvin, when Ray would not lead Apollo to endorse Kelvin, that should have been a signal to BCALA right there that, oh, they're not in this for us. They're not for us the way we were for them. Let's move on. But no, the actual person, Ray, and I told people this was going to happen because I knew that Emily Drabinski and her people, they were trying to get Ray Pun and Trevor Dawes eventually into the ALA presidency. So all the people that think that I'm crazy now, I'll have the credibility once Trevor runs. That's the thing. I know that Trevor knows I've been talking about him and his ambitions to run. So I think he's been kind of quiet, but Trevor is going to run. And Emily has been helping him with that. I don't know when, but it'll be in the future. And when he does run, That's when I'll have the credibility. I'll be able to say I told you, and I'll be able to say that publicly. I've been telling people privately, though, that Ray was going to run anyway, because I knew that as well through the grapevine. But anyway, I say all that to come back and say that BCALA did not stand on business. When Ray said, when Ray decided that he was not going to endorse, we should have had the same energy for him that he had for us. And we should not have endorsed him for ALA president, because he did not endorse the former BCALA president, Kelvin Watson, when he ran for ALA president. If it's not going to be BIPOC solidarity for us, it shouldn't be for you either. Actually, let me bring this up real quick too, and then I'll move on. So another thing that I want to talk about is how my being voted out was handled. And it showed the cowardice of BCALA. And I want to fight. You know, I came from the environmental justice movement actually started in my home county. It started in Warren County, North Carolina. Raleigh, they dumped PCBs, which are toxins. They dumped PCBs on my county because it was poor and Black. And so the environmental justice movement started there. So I believe in activism, but first of all, I know that librarians are not activists. That's a whole other thing. When you are paid by the government, you're not an activist. So any librarian who is on a government payroll from the state or from the county or city or whatever, please shut up calling yourself an activist if you are on a payroll by the government. There's no such thing as establishment activists. You sound like an idiot. All right. But for those people who are actually out there trying to fight, you don't have to be an activist to fight. But what I will say is you have to have some bravery and some spine. And so that's when I'm going to go back to how my being voted out was handled. So it'll be made public one day. I let Emily Drabinski know how I felt about her after she said she was going to involve me in the Black Caucus in some advocacy work dealing with Black people, and then she never got back in touch with me. I let her know how I felt, and I did a reply all to everybody who was on that initial message. So what happens from there is I get called. I'm not going to say who called me, but I get a warning that they're thinking about voting me out. And I'm like, okay, I bet you that's probably what they're going to do. If you're calling me to warn me, then it's going to happen. Now, I was never given a chance to defend myself, and I was lied to. What happened was they know that I have a young child. And so on Easter weekend, on a holiday weekend, when they knew I was not likely to be available, they scheduled a meeting to vote me out. I cannot attend the meeting because I've already got plans to take my daughter on an Easter egg hunt. They have the meeting without me, knowing I can't be there. And they vote me out behind my back without me having any way to defend myself. So they're cowards. They did not do that to my face. They did that behind my back. That's very cowardly. Now, they also lied to me. And this is something, so the BCALA meetings are actually public information because they're incorporated. So you can actually ask for their recording of that meeting where they informed me that I was being voted out if you want. Because it's public record, they have to comply. But here's the thing. They deliberately only recorded part of that meeting. And I noticed that. And I was thinking about recording them on the sly, but I didn't because I wasn't sure about the legality of that. I didn't know if I could record them without their knowledge legally. But what they did during when they had another meeting 2 days later, Easter Monday, to inform me that I had been voted out, they did not tell me that I had a choice, because I would not have stepped down. I would not have, even if they voted me out, I would have stayed in the position if they told me that I could have. But what they told me, with the lawyer present, they told me that I was voted out. I didn't think I had any recourse, so I just accepted that I was voted out. So then they started, so first they wanted to lie. The BCALA executive board said that they wanted to pitch that I resigned. And I was like, no, we're going to tell the truth. I did not resign. You all voted me out. So then they were like, okay, but we're going to make a statement that makes us all look good. Yada, yada, yada. It wasn't about me looking good, though. It was just about them. But so They sent me the draft statement, and even though I told them during the meeting I do not resign, and I still have this in my inbox, so I've still got receipts. Even though I told them I don't resign, they send this draft statement saying I resign. And I'm like, no, no. If y'all say that I resign, I'm going to tell them exactly what happened. Y'all better change this now. And so then they changed it right away, and they sent out the message on the listserv saying yes. But what they sent out, the message said the exec board unanimously voted him out, but then he accepted by mutual agreement, he decided to step down. There was no mutual agreement. There was never a mutual agreement. However, by that point, I pretty much agreed. I have no legal recourse there because I allowed them to put that message on the listserv that there had been a mutual agreement, and then I didn't respond to correct it right away. So that was kind of like I guess a silent co-sign of it, whatever that legal term is, I don't know, but I silently co-signed it basically. But here's the thing. I was kind of like, you know what? I'm a fighter, and this is revealing to me that these people don't fight. When they're so cowardly that they can't even, I'm not even talking about face to face. They couldn't even online be face to face with me to say, yes, we're going to have a vote as to whether we're going to vote you out, but we're going to give you a chance to defend yourself. No, they had to do all of that in secret, and they thought behind my back, and they had to be weaselly about it. So with me being a fighter, I have to be somebody that you would follow into danger. That's what I have to be. And I have to be somebody who has a team of people who will come with me into danger if I'm going to fight. Those people who were not brave enough to say to me that they were going to vote me out or to let me defend myself, if you're not brave enough to do that, then I can't fight with you because you're not brave. And I can't have weak, cowardly fighters. I'm not going to win anything. So that's when I was like, you know what? God took me out of that situation, and it was for the best. It was never meant for me anyway. And what I took from it, honestly, was God telling me there's a Jelly Roll song where Jelly says, I've learned every open door isn't always what you need. And that BCALA presidency was an open door that God still did not want me to walk through. And so God removed it. And so there you go. So when I'm critical about BCALA, it's because they allow themselves to be used and they allow themselves to be infiltrated, and they don't stand on the Black business. You have to stand on the Black business and fight for Black people. And they are not doing that. And so, and sorry, I'll wrap it up with this. I know I keep saying that, but the other thing that I want to mention, and then I'll wrap it up, is to say that they're always coming up with these other organizations. So they want to talk about like right now there's a group of Black men in the field, and this has been attempted before. There's a group of Black men in the field that want to specifically start a Black male librarian organization. Mm-hmm. And again, that's been tried before and it's failed, but they want to try it again. You wouldn't have this desire to start another organization if the organization that we had is sufficient. So people might be upset with me saying what I'm saying now, but if you are satisfied with what BCALA is doing, why do you want to start that Black male organization? Why do we have to have the Women's Librarians of Color organization? Why do we have to have JCLC? Why do we have to have anything other than BCALA if BCALA is standing on the business of Black people? Okay, there you go.
Okay. I have a couple more questions. I always like to end with a little bit of positivity and joy. So this is my kind of lightning round. Okay. So real quick, I know you mentioned martial arts, but what additional hobbies do you have outside of your library work?
My big hobby actually is martial arts and staying in shape. And I would recommend that to librarians, by the way. So I am going to use the positivity time to also make what I feel are positive recommendations. Librarians are, especially in these MAGA times, you never know what's going on and what people are going to be thinking. The way they used Emily Drabinski's Marxist librarian comments against her, mm-hmm. Marxist lesbian librarian comments, they can do that to any of us. And so we do need to be able to defend ourselves, but then also The reason I try to stay in shape is because yes, I'm 41, and one of my grandfathers died of a massive heart attack at 45. So I'm not
Hmm.
trying to die in 40 years. So I mean, in
Right,
4 years. In
right.
40 years, it might happen, yeah. But in 4 years, I'm not trying to die. So I do this to stay in shape, and I also get a lot of exercise to stay in shape. But I want to recommend that my librarians do it too. Librarians are We're a field with a lot of neurodivergence, and we are a field with a lot of people who, suffer from depression and anxiety and all those things. And I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety and with depression and ADHD. But martial arts gets my physical and mental in sync, and that's what I want us to do. Learn how to defend yourself, and then at the same time that you're learning how to defend yourself, you're also staying in shape and you're getting your mind and body coordinated. And that can do nothing but wonders for you. I get depressed when I don't practice and train, but I'm always fine when I'm staying in shape. And so yes, that's my big hobby. I do like watching documentary films also, but really I don't have a whole lot of hobbies these days because between work and staying in shape and then family obligations, there's not too much time for
Mhm.
hobbies. But I do love to just unwind with a little, it's legal in my state, so I'll say it. I do like to smoke a little weed and watch a documentary at night. That is the perfect way for me to get a good night's sleep and to get ready for the night. And it's how I maintain my work life balance as well. So I've heard that work-life balance isn't even really supposed to be a thing. Until I hear what they're replacing it with and I can make sense of it, I'm still going with healthy work-life balance. And for me, it's healthy to be able to pull away now. And I know that that's one of the things. I'll say this very quickly because I know we're at time, but uh, one of the previous, I won't say who it was, but one of the previous BCALA presidents nearly died while he was in office because, well, I said he, so that might give it away, but
Give it away.
yeah, but he was very stressed out, doing a lot of work that was unappreciated and had no help. He was going into the fight alone, which I was talking about earlier, and nearly died in that situation. And I do think that the BCALA presidency was going to kill me. I would have been happy to die standing on business, but it was going to kill me. And now that I've been removed, I can watch my daughter grow up. And so maintaining healthy work life balance, I will say it's a little easier for me because as a professor, my schedule is a little bit more flexible. So yeah, I can, if I need to, I can shift all my work to the night if I need to. So if I need to have a daddy daughter day, and some days I just do. If she's out of school, she was out of school earlier this week because of icy conditions on the road. We just had a
Mm.
daddy daughter day, and I switched my work to the night. And when you're in a professor position, you can do that. But I will say for the 9 to 5 librarians, the rank and file 9 to 5 librarians, I understand that you may not have that easy a time maintaining healthy work life balance because of your schedule, and don't shame yourself if that's the case.
Awesome. Um, Number one book you can read over and over again.
Yes, the book that I can read over and over again is a silly example, but it is the example I love. And it's a children's book that I read to my daughter a lot. She loves the book, and so I by default love it. And that's going to be I think its exact title is "There's a Monster in This Book," and it's a Sesame Street book that you read, and you find out at the end that Grover is the monster in the book. Love that book. I've read it over 100 times, and I'm willing to read it 100 more if my daughter will let me.
That's cool. Gotta love our kids, right?
Oh yes.
All right. And in one sentence, if you can,
Mhm.
what does life after libraries look like for you?
Dirt nap. I'm probably going to be an emeritus professor until I die. So yeah, life after libraries to me looks like the grave.
A lifer indeed. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. It's been eye opening. I know I'm gonna listen back while I'm editing and be like, "Oh man, I should have jumped in here. I should have said this." But no, I really enjoy having different perspectives. And yeah, real quick, if you want them to, let the people know where they can find you on social media if you're still active on that stuff.
Yes, I'm going down with the ship on Twitter, and I'm also on Blue Sky and Instagram. And it is Soul City Sigma. So my hometown, Soul City, North Carolina. I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma, so it's Soul City Sigma.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more information, you can visit us online at www.blackinthestacks.com and find us on most social media platforms at Black in the Stacks.